Mercury retrograde is officially over. I took a week off from posting on YouTube so that I could prepare for the next season of this channel. And I really loved how I started this most recent season of my YouTube channel with a reflection on 1 year of illustrated journaling. So I thought the perfect way to come back would be to share some reflections that I've been making in my own personal creative practice over the last few weeks and really over the course of this most recent Mercury retrograde in general. As I talked about in my last season where Mercury retrograde was beginning, this is one of my favorite transits to work with as a creative person. I think it's such an amazing time every year to look back on what we have already made, to build new creative skills, to build new connections, new ways of seeing things. And so I've really been putting that into practice, specifically around my dancing practice and learning to play guitar. So I wanted to share some of the things that I've been noticing and observing through my own creative practice, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you. If you're new to my channel, my name is Ash, and I am a creative and spiritual coach, an astrologer, an artist, and all-around lover of creativity and creative self-expression, particularly as a way for us to heal as we are coming out of heartache, as we are coming out of a season in life where we have felt really disconnected or disassociated with ourselves. I know for me personally, art and music and movement were all so critical to my own personal healing as I was coming out of a breakup, a business ending, trying to figure out what the next chapter of my life was going to look like. I really had to turn to my creativity to not only nourish me and give me satisfaction and fulfillment, but also to help me express some of the emotions that I was experiencing during that transitional time and ultimately help me find my voice again. Now, one of the things that I help people with very frequently is how to show up for creative practices, how to build creative practices, how to decide what to devote ourselves to when it comes to developing as an artist, a musician, a writer, and maybe we don't actually want to develop in these skills in a way where we want to share them with the public. Maybe it's something that we're just doing for ourselves, for our own personal development. I work with people on both ends of the spectrum, but it doesn't really matter what you're showing up to your creative practice for. One of the things that everybody struggles with is sucking, being bad at what we're doing. And it's actually one of the things that is so powerful about having a creative practice is that it expands our capacity to be bad at things, to accept ourselves even when we feel like we don't know what we are doing. And this is definitely something that I've been working around a lot because I've been learning to play guitar for a few years. It has been something that I have, practiced off and on over a long period of time. I never feel like I have gotten to a point of proficiency with it. And at the same time, I noticed during this most recent Mercury retrograde that more and more often now when I sit down to play guitar, it is something that I can tap into a sense of flow and intuition with. Even if it doesn't always sound perfect, I'm able to kind of drop into this place of reflection and strumming and just allowing myself to move freely across the fretboard. But I would not have gotten to that place if I would not have had a structured practice that I did over a few years. And showing up for that practice, showing up for my fingers hurting, showing up for the chords sounding super terrible, showing up for like everything just feeling really, really hard. If you've ever tried to learn to play acoustic guitar, you know what I'm talking about. It is painful, it is very difficult, and you suck a lot for a really long time. So I'm gonna share a few clips from my actual guitar practice over the last few weeks, and this is a song that I've been working on for probably 6 months or something like that, but I haven't been practicing like every single week, every single day, or anything like that. And in fact, in the first video of this series, I don't think I had picked up my guitar in like at least a few weeks. So I was gaining that strength in my hand again, even though it's not as bad as it was when I very first started playing guitar. I definitely still notice a difference if I take a break, and I have to just kind of be like prepared for it to feel a little bit rocky when I get back into it. So my progress is not linear, and I'm only showing really short clips from longer videos there, but I know from watching the full thing that I'm not subjecting you to that I struggle with similar things across each of those different practice sessions. But the other thing that I have to take into consideration is like the time of day that I was practicing, how frequently had I been practicing? Had I been practicing a lot the night before? My fingers were feeling tired. There's a lot of things that go into how we perform during our practice, which is why actually practicing is really not about performance. Of course, we want, especially I think in music, this is true, and this is true across all creative disciplines, that we want to practice in order to be able to perform better. We want to practice in order to be able to perform to the best of our ability, but performance is not actually the reason that we are showing up to practice. And in fact, in order for practice to be effective, we have to allow ourselves to suck, right? We have to allow ourselves to be bad. We have to allow ourselves to experience what's not really working here. And we need to be able to observe from a neutral place what's not working so that we know what to improve. And this idea of observation is one that you will see me talk about a ton in my work. I talked about it a lot in terms of what makes Mercury retrograde such a powerful transit to work with, but it's also a part of this creative visioning process that I teach, which is a 4-step process for creating the life that you want to live, to create a life that feels satisfying and fulfilling for you, especially if you're going through a transitional season and you don't feel like you're enjoying life. This is exactly the place that I was at when I developed this creative visioning process. And it is a vision boarding process that I used in order to manifest a new chapter in my life, to manifest a new home, to manifest new relationships, new connections, new friendships, and manifest a more creatively fulfilling life for myself. And part of that process was observing from a neutral place what feels good, what do I want to do more of, what's really working for me, and what's not feeling good, what am I sick of, what do I not want to keep repeating. And being able to observe from this neutral place is something that can really change the way that you experience life. And I learned a lot about observation actually from my creative practices, from playing guitar and noticing what does it feel like in my body when I'm observing that chord doesn't sound quite right, or that chord change doesn't feel quite right. How can I make little tiny shifts in what I'm doing that improve my overall playing, that improve my overall experience? Observation is this idea that what we are looking at and how we're paying attention to it and how we're interpreting that information is going to depend on our current orientation towards life. So one example of how this might work is, let's say that you're teaching a workshop or you are putting an offering out there. And let's say that you have one person sign up for your workshop. depending on your orientation to how you're observing, you could respond to that in one of two ways potentially. One way might be only one person signed up. I suck. Nobody cares about what I'm doing. I should just go crawl into a hole and never come out again. And that might seem a little bit dramatic, but I think if you're watching this video, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, because when you put yourself out there creatively, or you're trying to sell something, and you don't feel like you have a lot of buy-in, you can use that information as evidence of those things that you're already kind of believing about yourself, right? That you suck, that people don't care about what you're doing, that you should just give up. But depending on if you shift your orientation to a more neutral place or to a more abundant place, you might have that one person sign up and respond in a way that's like, I can't wait to meet this person. I'm so excited to give them an amazing experience. I want to learn more about what made them sign up for this workshop so that I can find more people like them, so that I can keep doing this thing that I'm doing. So this is part of the reason why observation is so important, but not only observing, but the way that we are observing and using the information that is being presented to us as evidence to keep going, keep pursuing what we want to create. So if I had been observing myself as I was learning to play guitar, as I was practicing, these chord changes that are pretty challenging for me in this song, I'm making some pretty significant jumps, at least for my hand, when I'm practicing that song. The fact that it's challenging, I could use that as evidence that I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to be able to learn to play guitar. I'm never going to be able to, perform this song. Or I could use that as evidence that I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm showing up for something even though it feels hard for me. And the way that you're orienting towards that information can make the difference between continuing to show up for your creative practice, your business goals, your, production goals in terms of what you want to share of your art with the world, or shutting down, turning away, shutting the laptop and saying, I'm not going to do this anymore. The reality is that most of the time in our creative practices, or also in pursuing business, we're usually existing more in a gray area where we're not completely terrible, we're learning and growing, but we're also probably not the best of the best, the most skilled, the most proficient, because we're still moving towards those improvements, right? But our brain can get really stuck in this, I'm either good or bad, I'm capable or I'm incapable, black and white thinking. And one of the biggest places where I see this show up for people is around this idea of I either need to be super structured, and I need to have a 30-day plan, and I need to have my strategy for how I'm going to accomplish everything, or I just need to trust my intuition and be in the flow and just let the answers come to me. And the reality is that we need both. We need a structure, a container that allows our intuition to flow through it, that we can trust our intuition to arrive when we create the space to actually hold it. And one of the places that I observed this in such an interesting way over the last few weeks was dance. So I got into belly dancing around December of 2025, and it's just been such a fun creative practice for me. But over the last 4 months, my relationship with belly dancing has mostly looked like taking YouTube video classes where it's like a traditional dance class where there's a teacher, she's telling you the moves, you're putting them together into some kind of choreography and sequence, you're working on developing different skills throughout that process, and then by the end of the video, you've learned some kind of sequence that you could do to music. But something really interesting happened where I actually went to a somatic dance silent disco event. And at this event, I was wearing headphones and listening to music, and for about a half an hour, I was in a room full of people and I was free to just dance however I wanted to. And I noticed that the way that I have danced has really changed. I've always really enjoyed dancing for sure, but because I've been practicing these specific kind of belly dancing moves over the last 4 months, that just like naturally became incorporated into the way that I was moving in this silent disco. Now, the following day, I did a belly dancing workshop with a teacher who was different from the one that I had been working with previously. And she taught in a really different way, where she would show you the move and she would explain how it worked, but then she would put on music and allow you to either kind of follow what she was doing without really instructing you exactly what to do, or you could kind of do what you wanted to do and dance using the moves that you had just learned, but putting them together in a way that felt right for your body. What I realized from that was that the safety of having the exact steps had taken me up to this point, but my dance practice was really asking me now to open up a little bit more, to trust my intuition a little bit more, and to get more comfortable with moving the way that my body wants to move, not just in this step-by-step process that somebody else was presenting to me and telling me this is the way that you do it. Course, where I'm at right now as a dancer, I don't totally feel confident in belly dancing, right? And so I am using this time, this concentrated container every, few days, where I just listen to music and I allow myself to dance freely without any choreography to see what comes through. Over time, developing in the skills is going to allow me to express my intuitive movement more easily. Because if I just was completely relying on my intuition, well, I wouldn't really be belly dancing at all, because I don't know intuitively, innately, how to belly dance. But through having practice time where I'm developing my skills, I can gain confidence so that when I am just working from my intuition and my natural body movements, it will look more and more like I am a confident belly dancer. It reminds me actually a lot of a conversation I had with a client today about making Instagram reels. And we were talking about how my favorite Instagram reels that I've ever made, and usually the ones that perform the best, are the ones where I literally just pick up the camera, I say what I want to say, and I post the video. I don't have a script. I'm not, working off of a step-by-step, this is the way to do it kind of process. But that's something that I've developed over time. I've developed the capacity and the confidence to just take a quick video of myself talking off the cuff and deliver the message that I want to make in 90 seconds, because I've been practicing this for years and I know what I need to say and how to structure it quickly. But if you're just getting started with it, you haven't really built those skills yet. So it's going to be a lot harder for you to accomplish that same goal, because you are working with a different skill set and you have a different capacity with delivering that kind of information. Now, something else happened with my dancing practice that I think illustrates this really nicely. I used to be a hula hooper, and for many years hula hooping was one of my main creative outlets, and it's probably the thing that really kind of got me into dancing in a lot of ways. And so over Easter, I actually picked up my hula hoops out of my parents' storage unit. I hadn't practiced in 5 years, but because I had spent so many years developing as a hula hooper, I'm actually a hula hoop coach, a hula hoop teacher. I know how to teach people how to hula hoop even. And so it was really natural and innate for me to express myself in dancing through hula hoop. And I noticed that the way that I presented myself as a hooper had also kind of shifted as I had been gaining these belly dancing skills, and actually some of the things that I think I used to really struggle with as a hula hooper are now a lot easier for me just from practicing belly dancing for a few months. If you watched up to this point, thank you so much for joining with me. This video was really meant to be just kind of like a relaxed sharing of some observations from my own personal creative practice over the last few weeks. But if this is something that you are also trying to create space for in your life, if you are trying to create space for creativity, if you are trying to use creative self-expression as a method or a mode of healing as you are going through a big life change, going through a transitional season in your life, and you're trying to reconnect with your voice, reconnect with your sense of confidence, reconnect with your sense of self-trust and not overthinking or holding yourself back, then I think you might really love the direction that I am taking my spiritual being program. So I have introduced a new tier to this group, which is called the Creative Being tier. And the Creative Being tier gets you access to the weekly Wednesday night rituals where we look at what's happening with the astrology this week, what's the season that we're collectively moving through, and how does that apply to you? How can we process this moment in time using creative techniques like therapeutic art practices that allow you to have that concentrated time every week where you can show up for your creativity and actually learn more about yourself, feel more connected to how you're feeling, feel more clear on what it is that you're experiencing in your life and actually expressing yourself from that place. And then how do we connect you into your vision for what's next, your vision for what you want this next chapter of your life to look like so that you can actually manifest that next chapter of your life from this creative energy, from this supported place. The doors to this will be opening up later on in April. I have a lot of creative workshops that I am hosting both online and locally here in Des Moines, Iowa. So I'll have information about all of that in the details of this YouTube video. But as always, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate you being here. Definitely like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. And I'm excited to go deeper with you in season 2 of my YouTube channel.